start the session with an invocation by Deepak of 2nd BSc Physics.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave.
Good morning, one and all. On behalf of the Department of Physics, DG Vaishnav College, I extend a warm welcome to today's panel discussion. Our department has been organizing seminars, science outreach programs under the banner of Triple Helix Science Club. Our club is a registered bronze club of Vigyan Prasad Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. To progress in the field of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM collaboration and engagement at different levels globally is very essential. Global competence suggests the ability to recognize one's responsibilities to both local and global community to develop and apply knowledge in culturally appropriate ways. Today we have gathered here virtually for this panel discussion on women in STEM in celebrating Global Women's Breakfast of IUPAC. The theme of Global Women's Breakfast 2021 is Empowering Diversity in Science. I extend my warm welcome to our guest speakers, Dr. R.V. Bhavani, Director, Consultant FAO Bangladesh, Dr. V. Madhurima, Professor, Department of Physics, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Tiruvarur, Dr. Anupma Harshal, Consultant, Science Communication and Public Engagement, Manav Human Atlas Initiative, ISER Pune, Dr. Kamakshi Sankaranarayan, Assistant Professor, Institute of Advanced Study in Science Technology, Guwahati, Assam. Welcome, Madam. I express my thanks to the Secretary and Principal of our college for providing opportunity to arrange this program. Also, I welcome the professors and my fellow student participants from our college and other institutions. Now, I invite Akshay Lakshmi of 3rd BSc Physics to introduce the speaker.
Dr. R.B. Bhavani Madam has finished a postgraduate and MPhil in Economics from IIT Bombay and PhD from Madras University. She has worked on food and livelihood security at MS Swaminathan Research Foundation for over a decade. As Director of Food Security, she coordinated research and field projects, initiating MSSRF work in the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. Currently, she is a consultant FAO, Bangladesh. Over to Valina.
Madam Dr. V. Madhurima completed her MSc and PhD from IIT Madras. She has extensive teaching and research experience and also executed research projects. She has guided MSc and PhD research works. She has many publications in reputed journals to her credits. Her area of research interests are experimental soft condensed matter and microwave physics. She has rendered a service in various universities across India. Presently, she is a professor, Department of Physics, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Tiruvarur. Over to Gayatri.
Madam Dr. Anupma Harshal is an educator with a teaching expertise of 17 years and a certified trainer for STEM teachers training on research-based pedagogy. She is a UGC CSIR scholar. During her tenure, she was an articulate member of the grant applications for START DBT funding and NAC. She has contributed to several regional RBPT workshops funded by DBT DST and ISER Pune across the country as a subject expert. She has contributed to the coursework for MBA program in waste management by MGNCRE MHRD and a book on Foldscope and its application. Her interests include Kathak dance, in which she has received recognition and awards. She is a recipient of the US Foldscope grant funded by the Ministry of Science and Technology and presently engaged with Project Manav Human Atlas Initiative at ISER Pune. Dr. Kamakshi Madam completed her master's degree in physics from University of Madras and doctoral degree from Pondicherry University. And she was awarded DST Inspire Faculty Award by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India at NIT Tiruchirappalli. Apart from teaching, our guest has guided MTech students for the year-long projects at NIT Tiruchirappalli. She has 29 research articles published in international journals to her credit. Presently, she is an assistant professor, Institute of Advanced Study in Science and Technology, Guwahati, Assam. Now I request Ranganayagi ma'am to initiate the panel discussion.
Good morning to all gathered here. International days are occasions to educate the public on issues of concern, to mobilize political will and resources, to address global problems, and to celebrate and reinforce achievements of humanity. Today we have gathered here to commemorate such one international day. Yes, February 11 is declared by UNESCO as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. We have here our 4 panel members, 4 professors today, to discuss about women in STEM. Ma'am, each one of you as scientist, academician and researcher, we would like to know your ideas on women in STEM. I request Dr. Bhavani to start the panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Ranganayaki, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me to be part of this elite panel. Well, to start with, I start with a caveat. I'm not from the pure science field, as you would have heard from the introduction. I come from the background in economics, but I have had the experience of working with a lot of scientists, as I worked with this not-for-profit called the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. So we were a mix of pure scientists doing basic research, as well as social scientists taking it out to the field. And being the first speaker, I would like to set the ground by presenting some facts in terms of about women in STEM, and something I think students who are, I presume, the major part of this audience need to be aware of, because both boys and girls, like you, are at the beginning stages of your career, and this is, I think, something you need to be to reflect on as you plan the future course and the paths you would like your life to take. So if you look at statistics, globally one finds that less than a third of women, less than a third of the researchers in STEM are women. And in India, about while we have a number of women graduating in the field of STEM, the percentage who are actually into research is less than 1/5. It's only about 14% actually. So which is not something really. It's something for us to think about. And also, when one talks about, say, the medical profession and the doctors, or one finds that generally the leading researchers are largely men, whereas at the frontline level you would find, say, the Anganwadi worker who is right at the grassroots level, she is generally considered, it's the image of a woman which comes up. But when it comes to climbing up and going on the higher echelons, it is the men who hold forth. So what are the issues which prevail, and how do we change? I think these are things that need to be thought about and discussed, and there needs to be more awareness, starting, I feel, right from the household level. When we are growing up as siblings, if we have brothers and sisters, are they treated differently? Are or are they encouraged similarly in terms of pursuing the subjects of interest to them, and how do they take it forward? And then as we grow up, and then the responsibilities that we need to take up, how do we what is the kind of support we get? Because a woman, whatever profession she is in, do this balance between productive work and care work, be it a rural woman working in agriculture or a woman scientist working in the labs and trying to do hardcore research. What is the support that one gets in terms of the time for care work and the time for research? Research requires so much more of focus and dedicated time. So then the men also need to be sensitized. So the boys in this audience or the young men in this audience, I would particularly request that you be more aware and think about this, reflect about this as to, how, is there a role, is there not a role that you also need to play in extending this kind of support to ensure that your woman colleague is able to contribute in similar fashion? So those are some basic issues I would like to place on the table at this point, and we have several eminent other panelists, and I could come back again during the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very nicely started. I would like to call upon Professor Madhurima to add a few points to this, Women in STEM.
Madhurima, you are on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
And can you see my presentation?
Yes,
wonderful.
We can see your presentation.
So let me quickly go through without wasting much of a time. I have been working with women issues both in Mizoram and at CUTN, not just for the cash and gender sensitization, but also currently I am a part of the Gender in Physics working group of Indian Physics Association, which is actually the one which works in collaboration with IUPAC. So this is something that we have just recently started. So before we go to today's discussion, I would like to mention this, although we all know that it's high time we stop thinking of gender binaries and thought of gender bimodals. The gender is a spectrum between the male and the female. There is a whole lot of colors between blue and pink. Sex is determined by biology, which you have no control, but gender is culturally defined. So whatever are in these red boxes, what kind of roles and responsibilities. This is what the speaker just before me was attributing to that. You think that women have to be caregivers at a lower level and then the surgeons have to be men, so on and so forth. These are perceptions that are created by society and attributes that women have to be fragile or emotional or, men are aggressive, so on and so forth. These boxes are the ones that we are trying to battle on an everyday basis. The two red boxes, because that is where we really have issues. There is the leaky pipeline for women in STEM. That is when we know that typically when the school results come out, girls are topping the 10th and 12th boards. In bachelor's, there are many girls. In master's levels, there are almost an equal number. And after that, it starts to drop. And in the decision-making levels, there are hardly any women. And I think the question that everybody is asking is, why is there a leaky pipeline? And many, many reasons. One is something that we all should acknowledge, is that women themselves are very, very afraid of taking any step because we fear. So there is this thing that there's no illusion greater than fear. And what is this fear? Fear of failure. That if you ask a question and if you're not correct, your teacher may say, don't you know even this? It doesn't matter. Failure is not a crime, but not being resilient, not taking your opportunities is going to be a huge problem. And lack of opportunities. In the sense that if you don't have a goal and you don't have a roadmap, you're never going to reach the goal. And you can't say there are no opportunities without knowing what is that you're seeking. And very often, the path between what you want, where you are and what you want to be is crisscrossed. You will be revisiting the same problems again and again, the same issues again and again. But are you prepared for it and do you have a roadmap? And the other problems are not having a sense of belonging, because as you go up the top, there are lesser and lesser women. A lot of this has to do with the fact that we also form cliques, in the sense that women tend to make friends with other women or men tend to make friends with men. It's time we got out of this. There is a confidence gap which comes because we are not executing our agency. Unlike boys, at least in our society, girls do not assert the fact that they can make decisions. We do not really play to our strengths, and which means we don't own our decisions. Simply put, we are passive, onlookers to our own life. Somebody decides what you should wear, somebody decides what career you should take, and we are just very passive people in this, and that is going to really help. This also arises from a lack of role models. Look around, there are enough number of women who have fought this and come forward. I'm sure Dr. Rutrao must have pointed you to Leelavati's Daughters and the other books in the series, which give you an opportunity to look at role models. And in a typically male dominated atmosphere, which is the STEM sciences, women have to keep proving themselves again and again that they are much more successful than their male counterparts. If a male can produce one paper and say that they're successful, a woman is forced to produce two. There is a tightrope walk between what is too masculine, what is too feminine, how do you dress, how do you talk, are you assertive, not assertive, so on and so forth. The maternal wall, pregnancy and motherhood take away a lot of time, but also this whole perception that you have to be seen as a good mother, that despite you working, you are the best mother. The superwoman syndrome, as they call it, is something that we all suffered. Women who face discrimination often will not come out and help the other women because they are like, I have been there, I can't be bothered with it, which makes us isolate ourselves because you fear that if you have a social engagement, you might look less professional. What it means is I don't want to be talking to my friends very friendlyly because they might look down upon me, and that actually ends up hurting. All these are from the reference that I've gave, but there is one more extra point that women have an additional issue of health, both physical and mental. Be kind to yourself. There are times when you don't have to push yourself too far because you can't, but don't make that as an excuse to be lazy. So what can you do? There is something called a bystander training, which anybody from the social sciences would tell you. Be there, speak up. If you see that somebody is, being not treated to the extent that they should, be there and speak up for them. Whether you're a male or a female doesn't matter, because one of the major issues that women face, and the reason why they don't really push themselves, is harassment. And if everybody can pitch in as friends, as partners, whether it is a life partner or as a friend, life would be much more easier. We just have to be there for each other. And so there are many, many initiatives that the government has done, and I'll be passing on the references. I'm sure Dr. Uttara knows. So there are enough opportunities to take these forward. So what I'm trying to say is that the leaky pipeline is real, and there are ways of overcoming it. There are official mechanisms and there are unofficial mechanisms. Official ones being what the government is putting out. There are agencies, there are sexual harassment cells and rules and everything else. And the unofficial is just empathy. Understand that a woman is as human as you, if you're a male, and understand that the other woman is going through exactly what you're going through. Don't detach yourself from being there for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful presentation. Yeah, as Bhavani ma'am said and Madhurima ma'am said, the world needs science for its progress, and science needs women and girls. As UN, according to UN statistics, and what Bhavani ma'am pointed out, only 14% of the women are entering into that research field. And Madhurima ma'am has added to that, and she has given lot of how we can improve the strength and the attitude in the younger generation. And we have Anupama, Dr. Anupama with us, and she can add a few more points. As a UG college, how can we inculcate the same strength and attitude to the younger generation so that we can have more women in STEM?
Thank you, Dr. Ranganaiki, and it has been a pleasure to be in such an elite audience today. Thank you, Uttara, for having me to this panel discussion. So while Madhurima just spoke about, the leaky pipeline, the gender binary versus the bimodal gender model, I'd like to begin here by, using my expertise being a teacher for, both schools in terms of training teachers as well as being an undergraduate teacher. I think somewhere the system begins right at home. So there has to be a paradigm shift. So it's like, if a girl is struggling, let's take for example, any one of us, okay? So if a girl is struggling with physics, if a girl child is struggling with chemistry, is struggling with maths, the general mindset, please correct me if I'm wrong, the general parental mindset is, it's okay, you're a girl, you can't do it, fine, just leave it. Just leave it, you can pass through it. Whereas it may just be an assimilation problem. Probably my teacher is teaching in a manner which is not reaching to me as a visual learner or as a differently abled learner. So I'm not able to receive it in the way I should have responded in terms of a reflection of my marks. But the general mindset is, oh, if you can't do science, it's okay, ma, just finish it up to 10th standard and then we can leave it. Again, the same thing happens for maths. So a lot of us who are, a PhD in biological sciences, I tell my students that we suffer from something called as mathophobia. Maths ka bukhar, mathophobia. So we are a very heterogeneous group. And what is that heterogeneous group? That all biologists have a common hatred for maths. Or at some point or the other, they were not able to, assimilate, comprehend, and understand when to apply mean, when to apply median, when to take the mode. Yes. Now, this is a system error. It is not that we didn't like maths or we couldn't do maths. This is a system error where it never made me understand that what is a null hypothesis. Was there a story associated with its origin? Where to apply, how to apply maths in biology. What's the interesting component? It's not maths, it's logic. It's just plain simple logic, right? So somewhere the system doesn't help me in overpowering this. So it begins with the parents, and then there is this conditioning. Okay, ma, you can't do maths, just leave it. We will go and do biology. And then you realize sometime whether you're doing medicine, whether you're doing a PhD in biotechnology or in biochemistry or even in physics, you end up having a paper in statistics as a part of your course module. So, it's like you tried to run away from your fear and you suddenly have to face it, because by the time you're doing your PhD, you're not very young anymore to, kind of change your belief system and say, okay, now I'm going to start loving maths. So you either have a paper in statistical analysis or in maths as a tool, or to apply it in any of your, PhD analysis. So I think somewhere that conditioning of our society, of us as parents, that if you can't do it, leave it. Leave it. No, if you can't do it, please try and understand what the problem is. Is it a difficulty in the child being receptive to a problem in physics or to a mathematics, a formula? Is by hearting going to help? I'll also give you another example. So we have statistics for undergraduate students. Ranganaiki, I'm sure will agree that in some component or the other,
Yeah,
we
ma'am,
try and
definitely, yeah.
introduce statistics. So I'll tell you what happens. We give them five formulas, and they know that the question is going to be based on any one of these five formulas. So you see, it's so easy for them to pass the paper, give the practicals, get flying colors, but not know statistics or where to apply it. I mean, you understand. So it's like
That's
they
right.
then end up in their PhD, and they don't know where to apply because they had this model where you can, by heart it and puke it. So somewhere this effort of beginning to change the mindset at home, that if you can't do it, let's see how we can sort this. Let's see, can we have a better way to learn it? And you really don't have to go to a tutor or a mentor. There are many ways, as a mother, as a parent, as a co-parent, as a family friends, you can get the child interested and get to sort this problem. I personally feel, because I am a parent to a learning disabled child, so I can tell you it's very simple. It's very simple. You don't have to have to take, a brand A or a brand B tab or a module that is going to tell them about, a physics or a chemistry problem. So that's point number one. Second, conditioning, Ranganaki mentioned here, because of the college. So second comes the role of the teachers. So in 11th 12th, the children are so programmed, again the same problem, that you apply the formula y square equal to 4x, whether it's an ellipse or a parabola, and you finish your papers, and then you come back to graduation, and then you have the artist task of the undergraduate teachers, having to face a population which is completely demoralized. Let's be very honest. It's more like, whether I didn't get in medicine, I didn't get in pharmacy, I didn't get in physiotherapy, and so I'm here. So imagine you address a class which is completely demoralized, demotivated, And you have a foundation course program which tells them about feminism, tells them about opportunities, about democracy. I'm sure there are different topics under foundation course depending on the university core modules that are there. Instead of conditioning them to understand that, look, you are here right now, let's optimize this, let's understand how to face an interview, let's understand how to face a class, let's understand how to face an audience, let's understand how to work in a group, in a syndicate. That will help them normalize their feelings, that will help them talk to another person, that it's okay if I didn't get into physiotherapy, it's okay if I didn't get into medicine. I could end up doing a PhD with a very premier institute, or a decent PhD, and I could still be contributing to the cause of cancer. So, that conditioning is completely missing, and university education puts a foundation course there which primes them to, I don't know what kind of understanding. So this may be a little strong view coming from my desk, but I feel there is a need for, some kind of normalization, that it's okay, you're here. Fine, let's have some modules on, how to make a syndicate. So let's put one academically strong child there, two medium, and two academically weak child. And you know how it is when a train runs, the engine can't run faster than the other parts of the train. So you try to give them group activities, try to normalize things, and make them understand that it's okay, it's perfectly okay. Get people who are let's say who've not done their MBBS, who've not done their higher education, who are entrepreneurs, to come and talk to these students, so that they're conditioned that it's okay to be here, and let's kind of harness their strength for them to go ahead. Now, another important point that I want to raise here is that there is no camaraderie. So at first year, when the student enters, the second year and the third year are very busy trying to tell them that, why have you come here? There is no future that we have. There are no jobs waiting for us. And after all, what will you end up doing? You will just do an MSc, you will just do a PhD, and again, you're going to be at the same crossroad trying to understand where to go from here. So we need to build this camaraderie. We need to have, I tell my students every day, the best vitamin to have is B1, which is also thiamine, which is also being together. So I think somewhere we need to strive as teachers to build teams. That this is your second year students. Come on, second year students, let's have a get together, an informal chat of what you are feeling, how you learned, how you cope up with your mechanisms, and how you are now building to where you see yourself after 5 years. So this will again help them to make a place for themselves, to see themselves as communicators, as academicians, as research, as people in research. So somewhere this camaraderie or teamwork is missing. So they just come there, girls are first time learners, and they just don't know where to go, what holds in the future for them. So even teachers are so busy completing the curriculum, they don't have the time to tap and have an informal chat with them, that it's okay, we were also first time learners. I'm from Haryana, so the pressure is too much, where you have to study or get married, So these kind of just informal sessions of chatting and saying it's okay, the pressure is there, but still it's under the pressure we evolve. It's under pressure that we have something amazing, like Madhurima just mentioned, the building of resilience, and that's going to help you survive. And the third thing, which I want to mention here as teachers, specifically for girls, is somewhere, they lack motivation. They may be first time learners. They may be coming with backgrounds where they're also doing a lot of homework, helping their mothers in the kitchen, helping a lot of activities at home. Even girls in the cities, I'm not saying if, girls in rural backgrounds, even a lot of girls in the cities, or they may be spending time in travel. So somewhere as teachers, we need to, we need to condition them and optimize. Okay, when you're traveling in the train, just do a quick run through, have a discussion in the train about, what was last discussed in the model system that teacher discussed, or let's say opportunities that are there for us together, whether it's in physics, whether it's in biotechnology, whether it's in biochemistry. So what are the opportunities? So give them some time to speak about science, to discuss science, okay? And then their fears will come out, and those fears need a platform. So I feel college plays a very important role where these fears exist, these questions exist, but they don't have a platform to voice them, and they don't have somebody who's listening to them, or who can say that, look, I don't know all the answers, but I will sort it out for you. I will get you somebody who will talk to you. We have a counselor in house. Let your counselor address them. So I've seen many colleges where maybe as a part of NAC you end up showing a counselor. But believe me, there is no mechanism where you can actually say that every Friday for 2 hours the counselor is here, and you can just go and without your iCard, so that she doesn't have to know which class you are and from where you are. So somewhere I think girls need to be motivated, they need support. So I think as a college, with my experience, these are 3 points that as parents, as teachers, and also giving them a platform to express what are their challenges, and that will help us design together modules or interactive sessions or trainings that will help them cope up better, and that will ensure that this leak that we are talking about doesn't happen. So if a student comes and tells you, ma'am, I want to academically progress further, I want to do my masters, but I'm a first time learner, I don't have the opportunities. So we can guide them that, look, there are hostel facilities, there are scholarships that are available. So somewhere, making the child comfortable, especially girl child, where they're constantly mentored at home that we shouldn't say, we shouldn't talk, we shouldn't express. So at least in college, when there is a group, okay, you say, it will come out. So those were the 3 pointers that I thought I could, contribute. Of course, there are many more
Yeah,
that we will be
yeah,
discussing during the course
yeah,
of our discussion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kamachi, can you add a few more points to this discussion?
Can't hear. Kamakshi. Yeah, Kamakshi ma'am, we can't hear
Yeah,
you.
Kamachi, Dr. Kamachi, we
Oh,
can't
sorry.
hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I have to.
you're
just
audible.
unmuted. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for organizing a wonderful webinar series and inviting us. So I'm really very happy to hear my previous speakers, and it's really nice to also learn with all of them. And just like us, Professor Madhurima pointed out, we do have a lot of leak in our career, for especially for the women. And I am here to just tell about my case, generally, that out of all the, I mean, I have recently joined in Guwahati as assistant professor, and until now I have never traveled outside Tamil Nadu. Okay, so and let me start from beginning. So I am the first generation learner. My home, I'm the first graduate, I'm the first postgraduate, first PhD holder in my family. So, and the whole nobody even knows about like PhD when I have completed it. Okay, so I come from such a background, and Dr. Utra knows of me since my master's days, almost 15 years. She knows me, how what I have like come through. So this is what I am. But then and there you need to take very strong decisions. The first point is that you need to have very strong decisions, and especially as women you have to like give your you have to be very strong. First point is that because you guys have chosen science, right? So all the students have chosen science and you have come, and first point will be like, okay, after BSc what should I do? So until 12th, I think all of you like everybody goes to school, has a good marks, everything fine, and then you go to choose between BSc and BE, because in Tamil Nadu we know that there is lots and lots of engineering college. So you go to like different sectors. In engineering, why I mentioned, even though STEM engineering also includes, in after engineering also there are a lot of career breaks, and only people end up either going to a software job, because people think that the software and the IT company is the only kind of resource there. But apart from that, if you are choosing engineering, the girl students will choose biotechnology most probably, and not choose any other subject. Physics and maths still considered to
Any
be a
other
kind
subject?
of very difficult subject
Male
for
dominated.
women. And I'm very happy that there are a lot of women students in this audience. I'm really happy to see that. And so you have chosen science, and it's okay. for example, I'm just telling my case that during my BSc, I was not a very excellent student. Okay, I mean, due to so many issues, because later on I started realizing why I was not very good, because I had a lot of other family and other backgrounds, that in my family there's nobody who is graduating for the first time, right? So, and when I go through that, I was, it was quite new to me. So once I completed, I had to take a break. So I was working in, I'm just telling you, I worked in Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai, okay, as a secretary to a doctor. So I'm telling you this, that 1 year, that experience helped me to realize what I am. So it is always good to have breaks. Doesn't matter, you can have breaks, but you have to like go back and then like come very strongly in life, that okay, yes, next is this. So then I did my masters. After that, due to again few other family situations, my father passed away at that point of time, so I had to go for a job. Okay, so I went for to like a e-learning. That time e-learning was just beginning. There was no Byju's at that point of time. Byju's is very recent addition. So previously there were so many other e-learning institutes. So I was teaching there. Again, that motivated me that this is not the place where I am supposed to be. So I changed 2-3 jobs within a span of 1.5 years. So every time there is a break, that motivates you to go further. And then I had joined, I was just looking for an opportunity to join PhD. So I joined for a PhD in CLRI, Chennai. And I wanted to work only in biophysics. Again, this point, I again want to insist this point again, that interdisciplinary research is like the women equality, which is like being discussed, but not implemented completely. So interdisciplinary research is something again, much more what you call needs to be appreciated by people, because I have attended almost so many interviews in India. So everywhere going to a physics group and then discussing about that I am working on biophysics is still very difficult, even though the first you know who was the first person to talk about biophysics is Schrodinger. I mean, you please read on a book called What is Life, and that is where he starts about why physicists have to read biology. So I again work on a very different topic, and I work on experiments, so it is rather kind of difficult. So my choice was good at that point of time. Like I'm talking like 12 years ago, I joined PhD. Then only I was looking for this opportunity to get into biophysics. And then I had, luckily even so far, I did not have a break, like means I'm keep on working. And then I got this Inspire. I was teaching and working in NIT Trichy, and then I have moved forward. So what I'm trying to say is there were these 2 breaks that define me. So there was a break of almost 2.5 years. Okay, and but at the same point of time, I also wish to say that there are in few places government is giving relaxation for age relaxation. I mean to say that age relaxation in terms of choosing your career, like in few places, but it is not completely implemented in every sector. So I think there is few points that if that can be included, more women can come up, because even if they have the break between the BSc, because it is only your choice. So until you choose that path, we need to give the women some space and time to like think, because you are always under the influence of a man in life every time. So your father, your family, or somebody. Okay, when you start to think yourself is only when you start earning. Truly speaking, when you start earning a penny, then you will be really like thinking about yourself. So it is better that we give them some space and time to think about themselves and then move forward. And then that is one point. And as Madam Madhurima Madam very clearly mentioned, it's really true that all of our journeys are entirely different, but we need to be be for the one another, so that we can support each other and go. Because I think the women empowerment is also again still, I would say that it's not like completely understood by women only. So we need to have a much more, like we should be like in good groups, and then have a lot of discussion about this, and then come up with better for the coming generation. And as Madam also pointed out, Leelavati daughters, So in her presentation, she mentioned about Lilavati daughters. It is high time we should also start something called Lilavati granddaughters to have, not in terms of the not in terms of the age, because all are young till we are like working. It's not about the age factor I am talking about. It's about the generation, that gap that we are going through, because nowadays it's just 2 years is a generation, 2 or 3 years. I do not see my junior similar to me, because they go through entirely different phase compared to me. So
That's
I
right,
think
ma'am. Yeah.
it is high time that the Indian Academy should bring up some and also it should not be like a only one book. It should be like a weekly chapter or something in a like a publishable forum, that we need to have more representation from women who have gone through this. Because in Lilavati daughters, if you read, every single chapter talks about a person's struggle. I just request all the girl students as well as the boy students to all read this one, so that you will understand how people have like gone through this thing. So I feel that we should have this book very soon, so that more generations will be motivated. So thank you all, and I hope we'll join for the next session. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Wonderful suggestion, Lilavati's granddaughters. Yeah, that's nice. India has a lot of role models for women in STEM. How do we project it so that younger generation knows it? Bhavani, ma'am, Dr. Bhavani, can you add a few more points in this discussion? Yeah.
I think it was a pleasure listening to all the others, and I think Dr. Kamakshi here is a model for the youngsters in the group, who are aspiring to come up as scientists. And I think the most important point which came across from all the speakers has been the need for this, being there for each other. And both, yes, women scientists, colleagues, as well as the male scientists, and because across the globe, again, if you see, it's it's the larger societal level, the patriarchy is so deeply entrenched, it reflects in so many ways. So I don't know, some of you may have seen this film Hidden Figures, which was made a couple of years ago based on scientists who worked at NASA, and the kind of discrimination they have to face. And even in terms of when it comes to facilities for women scientists, the kind of are things made workable for you, not in terms of like, okay, one knows you have to handle responsibilities and back home, but even at the workspace, are you treated on equal terms in terms of your lab facility, the lab research? There was this film, very deeply moving film I saw last year on Picture a Scientist. It's made by in the US about women scientists and the struggle they had to face. So there was this woman scientist working in MIT, but the kind of discrimination she faced in terms of being provided very dingy lab space and not being allowed to really work and come up. Now this upcoming geologist, and when she went on field work, she was not being treated as a scientist, but being at each step being kind of put down because she was a woman. So those are those attitudinal changes for which I think the sensitization has to start at the home level itself, for parents, in terms of bringing up their children as equals, looking at both men and women, like the blue and the pink that Dr. Madhurima showed. You need to treat them equally. What are the toys you give your children to play with, and to think about? And again, Dr. Anupama, the point you made about how do you make the subject more interesting, so that you kind of there may be so many reasons why you are not able to take to it right at the beginning. So that kind of not dismissing that you're okay, you need not do it, but to actually learn to enjoy what you're doing and making that enabling atmosphere environment being there for you to take on. And for every girl, right from at the home level, to know that you are an important individual. The point that Dr. Madhurima made, no, we should not be passive, acceptors. We need to speak up and, have that self-esteem and dignity, and that is what will help us grow in life. So that's something which needs to be instilled. Parents have a very big role to play. Teachers, as the peer mentors and the people who guide the students under them, they need to instill this in their students, and again, and the male students to be more sensitive and understanding of this larger perspective. Thank you, Dr. Ranganayake.
Well said, ma'am. Your
I think I'll just take forward what
can you add
Dr.
your views,
Bhavani has just said, which is about what happens with our male counterparts. I would like to get a bit anecdotal about it, because then tell you what the technical is. One was, I think I did my BSc from Queen Mary's College, and this is in the late 80s and early 90s. And the eve teasing that would happen in the buses is legendary. Like, we have all had to suffer it. But the fact, and this I think many girls will vouch for it, was the eve teasing was mostly never from your own boys, the colleagues. Like, yes, I went to a women's college, but then we had presidency. It were the other men who were indulging in eve teasing, whereas the presidency boys would always stand up for us. They would be a physical barrier between the men and us. They would teach us how to handle them. And I remember this poster that I saw once in QMC when we had an exhibition, and it left such a lasting impact on me, because I think it was the first time I heard, I saw a male react to it, which was about rape. So there was this cage in which they had put the men, and the women are walking on the street and saying, this is how it should be. Why are you caging the women? And this was late 80s. It came as a shock to me that men could be so sensitive to something and have a strong view about it. So again, this is the gender stereotyping norm that we talk about, where boys and men are hesitant to speak out because they might be seen as somebody who's weak, which is not true. Believe me, you will get the respect of a woman much more if you speak out. But it doesn't end when you are in your teens. Quite recently, when I joined, in the current institute, and I was coming as an expert to start the department. This was about 10 years ago, but not too far into the past. I don't want to take names, but there was this very senior scientist who I was being introduced to as the person who was starting one of the department. He was, he was much senior to me, 20 years senior to me, but a very big name. And we get introduced, and the first thing he says is, சமைக்க தெரியுமா? எப்போ உங்க கை மணத்தை வந்து நான் ருசிக்க போறேன்? Do you know to cook? When am I going to taste what you cook? I was left flabbergasted, and it would have been a flashpoint because I would have given it back left, right, center. My male colleagues who were standing next to me, one of them said, do you know she has come to start the department? The other said, this is what she is an expert. They diffused the situation. What could have quickly escalated into a very serious, I would have taken up the fight, seriously, because I think that's inappropriate. And they also took me aside and said, look, he's much older, maybe he doesn't understand. So there was this entire diffusion of the process, but then there was a complete sensitization. So this in technical terms, I'm sure many of you know, is called a bystander training. That's what I was talking about. When you are there witnessing something that is happening, it could be a professional slight. It could be just putting down a woman and saying, she's not good enough. Or sitting on an interview panel and asking a woman, but how will you manage your husband work somewhere? You never ask the question to the man, ever.
Man.
Can you stand up and say that these questions are inappropriate?
Inappropriate.
That is very, very important. And that bystander training is something that each one of us has to get. Surprisingly, I feel, at least my personal perception is that I think many of the boys and men are sensitive, but there is this whole macho perception into which they put themselves and are refusing to speak. If women can come out of their shells, I think the men can also come out of their shells and show their sensitive side, which we appreciate a lot. The second thing I would just like to add in the same tone is a term that I heard recently through some other panel discussion in mental health, that it's called a circle of care. So you create a circle of people around you who care for you. So it was with reference to the pandemic, and they said that a student, a teacher, a parent, and I think that circle of care is very, very important for all of us. The parents need to be taken into the decision making, and many of the girls nowadays, let us not pretend that they are without agency. When you look at the Nia Nana shows or whatever, where they are like, my father has to pay for my wedding, which will cost, take me in a helicopter, you can definitely ask for what you need in your education. So you do have the agency, but are you actually executing it in the right way for what is right, for which you need to know what your goals in life are? Right. So that circle of care, and I think that takes us back to what Anupama was saying, which is that we need the counselor, we need to be there as a group, and the group has to extend beyond just yourself. Have a few male members in it, take into confidence your parents, your teachers, and then it'll all fall into place. Thank you.
Wonderful words, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Dr. Anupama, can you add a few more points to this discussion?
Yeah, I'll take from where Madhurima just left. She mentioned about boys to help or bystander training. So I think college would be a good place where you actually end up doing this. Okay, so I'll tell you my example here. That I was in a South Indian Education Society, SIS college we call it, at Mumbai. Okay, now Mumbai doesn't have that kind. It has a very cosmopolitan and I would say a very broad-minded culture, because I've been here, born and brought up here, so almost 50 years here. So as compared to other cities, I would definitely vouch that it's a much safer city, because I've traveled for my PhD at 2 in the morning, come back home at 4 in the morning. So much safer city, I would say, relative to all the traveling. And I traveled to Northeast also exhaustively. So let me be very honest that even I find the Northeast is a much safer domain as compared to getting down at Delhi airport at 2 a.m. Okay, so I would wait at the airport in Delhi to just travel to Sonipat, but I didn't do that in Guwahati. I went to Nagaon, I went to Pasighat. I was very comfortable. So let's be very honest about this. So this bystander training, I feel, when we were a group of students, we had, 4 boys and 16 girls doing microbiology. So, there would be times when we would not understand concepts, where there would be times when we would, like completely give up that I'm not able to do this, whether it was whether it was a process in industrial biotechnology or just about assimilating some problem in statistics. So, we had these 4 boys and we had a system where our teacher would say, okay, let's discuss it in a tutorial session. And their whole approach, maybe their conditioning at home was such, their whole approach was not that you don't know it. Their whole approach was, come, let's discuss, let's do a brainstorming, and let's try and understand, what goes into making beer, what goes into clinical trials, level 1, level 2, level 3. And you won't believe it, during these discussions which the teacher just initiated, it was not a guided inquiry. Teacher would just initiate it in the practicals. If we finish the session and she would said, okay, you can take off your lab coat, sterilize the table, and then we can have a chat. So these boys, would actually help us by saying that, okay, let's break this, let's understand how this is. So at any time, the ground on which they started was not that you don't know. The ground was that, fine, let me make it simple because I understood it this way. So let me share it. So, that built a lot of confidence. And then when I came home and I told my mother that, we would be having, Suraj and Ryan coming over and we are going to be studying. Believe me, I can tell you, for a Haryana Brahmin family, it's terror unleashed, because having 2 boys come home and then we were discussing. But I realized that I was not a kind of learner who was, able to assimilate when the teacher taught in class. But when we discussed, I was able to prepare for my GRE, I was able to prepare for my AGRE, which was more of, giving me a very holistic perspective that other than academics, this is the way you look at logic, this is how analysis is done. And that is how, so she would come and check, were we studying and, were we discussing and things like that. And I would so look forward to discussions, because they would be very much deviated from the conventional things that would be told at home, that why have you put Anu in science, you'd end up paying a dowry of 1 crore, and how are you going to get an alliance for her being a North Indian family. So those are the kind of challenges, continuously it starts conditioning your brain that, am I really doing the right thing by coming into science, by making a career in science? So somewhere I think, something called as cooperative learning, something called as participative in the process. Not that, there is one attitude where you say, okay, you can't do it, let me do it for you. The other thing is, okay, you can't do it, you didn't understand, let's see how we can sort this better. Let's see how we can solve this. So that way, this bystander approach, or, participating, that somebody can't understand it, let's try and make it simple. And that, as a man, as a male child, will always make you have that approach that whenever there's a problem, let's be together, and that will make you think not in the sexist way of that I'm a man and she's a woman, let me show her down, or let me tell her that, look, you couldn't do it and I'm doing it. Not that kind of attitude, but look, buddy, we are a team. Irrespective of I'm a man and you're a woman, irrespective of there are 5 males in this and 1 female, getting to build this team and saying that, yes, let's sort it, let's do it together, and harnessing strengths. So Anupma, you're good with the writing part. So fine, you do the writing part, but at the same time, let me tell you what our core foundation is. What is the project all about? Let me break it out for you. So, but let me tell you, there is an honest admission here also that, look, I didn't get it. Because if you keep pretending that you know it and you're getting it, then you're also going to be assumed. And then you have to end up doing the hard work of doing it all yourself. So stop pretending, be very real, don't fake it, be very real and say, look, I understood what the process was in the meeting. This was explained, but can you just break it down for me? This part I have not understood. So you have to be honest, and only then help should be forthcoming. So I think for male students, this conditioning is required in college, that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay not to understand. That's got nothing to do with a male or a female student. Let's build it cooperatively. Let's understand how we can build this together and sort this out. Let's understand how we can make it simple. Let's understand, we all know that whenever you discuss, do a role play, do a storytelling, things become very simple. Things do become very simple because we are all very different kind of learners. So somewhere this emphasis of not labeling it as blue and pink, but looking at the other spectrum of colors, irrespective of whether it was M or F, male or female. It's just that we're all very different learners. Let's be very accommodative. Let's not be judgmental that you're not going to be able to do it. It's not your cup of tea. Like making a presentation in Prezi. I mean, I have not been conditioned to make a presentation in Prezi. I always do it in PowerPoint. So when one of my colleagues at ICER said, Anupma, we'll do a training and we'll be able to sort it, I kind of thought that it was so simple. It was really not so difficult. But the whole point of saying that, Anupma, it's quite simple. Don't worry. It's just one slide leads to another. So try and put it like in a plan of action how you want to do it. So being together, and also not trying to show that somewhere your male domination, that look, I know it better and you'll not be able to do it anyway better. So the snatching, that let me do it, I'll do it for you, and then you can do it. You can always tell the boss, you can always tell the team leader that you did it. No, let's break it down and say, okay, let's understand how to do it. We'll work as a team and we'll sort it out. So somewhere I think men as students, this conditioning has to come. Only then they will be better team members. They will team lead, or they will end up being better parents and better members of the society. So somewhere you will find that a lot of these cultures which we have, probably we work as a very close team with Dr. Shashidhara, and being an all women's team, the way he puts across his ideas, the way he drives, and believe me, we work for almost more than 8 hours, sometimes 12 hours, sometimes even 16 hours. So when he had to tell us, that you're going to Pasighat for the first time, never once he said that, Anupma, will you be able to travel alone? How will you? It was like, this is my team, this is my COSME team, this is my ICER team, this is my RBPT team. So Anupma, you'll be going to Pasighat, you'll also be going to Itanagar, you'll also be going to, some other place. So I always felt, ki when I reached Guwahati and I had to take a train, and then reach Itanagar, and everybody in the train was telling me, "Aap itna dur aa gaya, you've come so far alone, aap akela aa gaya." And that is the time I first time realized, that my husband also didn't ask me, "You're going alone." But I for the first time, I realized that empowerment came of being Dr. Shashidhara's team, where I was not a woman, I was not my age, I was not my skill set, I was a team member. Where Anupma, you do this. So there are 3 workshops lined back to back. And so, whether it was Pasighat, whether it was Lakhimpur, whether it was another place, Itanagar. So that empowerment will come only when we treat and condition our male students in college that, look, we are a team together. We are all different learners. There are no male and female, tags attached here. We're different kind of learners. We're different receivers. And that will bring a real empowerment. I will use another example here, that when I gave my ICER interview, I had to, I clearly knew that I was working for ICER Pune. So I had a very sensitive mentor in the form of Dr. Nagaraj Balasubramaniam, and specifically taking names here for you to understand that these are the cultures that these institutes harbor, and these are the people who are torchbearers of these kind of cultures. So he asked me that can you how good are you to moving to Pune, which is when I told him that my child may need help. She's in her formative age, and I may not be able to. So he said, perfectly okay, whether you fly from Pune to some place in India, or you're twinning with Northeast, or you fly from Bombay, it's perfectly okay. So, that kind of, being treated with equality, being treated with that kind of respect. And also, it really empowered me, saying that somewhere every time he puts forth, like in the pandemic, you won't believe, we've had bosses who've, shared with us as a team things about mental health and things about things, which really have mattered. Because so he would say, I have a wife who works for a bio incubator lab, so I completely understand that you're giving. So, very nicely would mentor that, even if you're able to give 3 to 4 hours, it's perfectly okay. So that kind of understanding that, look, I understand whether you're a female or a male, I know that you're all working from home. I know that sensitivity. So I think somewhere when we teach them in college that to break away from these gender specific stereotypes or work to be associated, it's okay to just walk in as a man in the house and take water instead of expecting your wife to do it. Okay, so when we break those stereotypes specifically in college, then then I feel boys become more accepting at home, where if their mother is doing this, they'll say, Amma, please don't do it, I can go and take a glass of water. So then what happens is, tomorrow when they are teammates, then the roles get very I would say less defined, and it's more like working together, being together, ideating together, and executing or working under stress, being there as partners when we go ahead. So I think college is a good ground for you to condition male students, and get them that, look, we're together, we're different kind of receivers, we're different kind of learners, and that is why this difference exists. So college can be a very good I would say priming ground for this kind of a culture. And this will encourage, like, for example, these are observations. You will definitely find that the biotech group is 30 girls and 5 boys, and the physics group is 30 boys and 5 girls. So somewhere I have seen these 5 girls, will come from Navy Nagar or from KV, and they will always be in a group, and these 30 boys will be like, oh, they talk physics, they walk physics, they do DRDO projects, and they are doing presentations. So somewhere, 30 plus 5 is very different. So that knitting together has to be there, whether you do it by getting projects, whether you do it by sensitizing them, or by reading books, or book clubs or research meetings could also be about general books, right? You could just, and I always say that, let it be a teacher initiated inquiry, that there is a specific objective you want to achieve, and you set it you set the table, and you let the discussion to ensue. So something like this can definitely make a very, very cohesive group, so that at the end of the day, when there are 35 people in physics or 28 people in physics, they all know that they have avenues in NDA, they all know they have avenues to join a particular facility. Not just that boys will go to DRDO and girls will see ki aage kya karna hai, where will we go, or where should we explore this. So somewhere I think college is a good ground where this sensitization can happen. And I like that name, bystander training. So I am really going to end up using that. Thanks, Madhurima. So thank you. Yeah, those are my points. Yeah.
Well said, ma'am. Thank you so much. Kamakshi, can you conclude and add a few points to this panel discussion? Dr. Kamakshi?
Yeah, I think, I'm little having less experience in terms of what all the others are having with respect to, all these things that they have discussed. It was very new to me as well, and also very good to listen from all the eminent speakers. So I just wanted to add only 1 or 2 points. One is, as like Madhurima madam mentioned about in an interview, I have been asked, at least, so how will you come and stay here when your family is not here? So this is a question I have been asked, and it was not inside Tamil Nadu, but at least here, wherever I'm working right now. So there has been a question of, will you be able to come? So until then, I didn't even realize, okay, I was all the time working in Tamil Nadu. So that was, means I was always doing that. So I said, yes, I want to come. I want to take my challenge and I want to come at this stage. Only one thing is I know Hindi little bit, so it was okay for me. But once I come here, people, when I talk, it's not, I mean, I know Hindi, but it's not like fully I'm fluent in Hindi. So always I mix between Mera and Meri. So always I confuse with that. So people keep correcting me, Mary Bulna hai, Mary Bulna hai. So I always say, no, I will tell Mera on because I myself consider like that way. So I always say this in the office. So there is, as Madam on all mentioned, there is definitely a very strong masculine environment, and that is really like pressurizing you to perform better than everybody. So that part is still there. And having said that, I am the only female faculty who was recruited among 8 faculties which are men in this one institute I'm talking about. So if you take such a statistics in all over India, definitely we are not having respecting that women who is trying to put some effort to come and then start working. And as Madam mentioned, I do not know about that Hidden Figures movie, but that is really true in every part of India as well. So your smaller lab space related issues, and this I want to also mention about my old institute in NIT Trichy, where there was just an incident of some student did some mistake, and all the faculties were a bit angry about that incident. It was not the, but one male faculty shouted at them like anything, which we stopped, asked them to stop. No, let them, they have done some mistake, it's okay. But when we were discussing this issue with another technical assistant in the lab, he immediately mentioned, he is a man, he is supposed to what. So this was mentioned in NIT. I mean, like kind of all these places where you go and work. I said no, all are equal faculties only. We are all faculties. There is no difference between the men and the women. So such kind of a strong masculine environment does exist, and that is the why Anupama Madam has clearly pointed that really we need very good environment and kind of the conditioning. That word was very correct. That we need to condition them from their colleges, not only in the science college. It should be done in engineering colleges as well. I see in few of the developed cities that at least in the movies they show that they are kind of so very caring about the women's what you call their career. Means if it is in a IT field, I do not know whether such a thing exists in all the fields. At least in an IT field, people understand they have to work late. They do all these things. So this kind of at least a image at least exists. I think it is majorly because of the perks that they receive compared to here. So in the science field, so I think so. But in a science field, we need to motivate all the boys as well as the girls that okay, it's fine. We are a progressing society, so we need to have those conditioning from their college days, and that will help to reduce this women having compromised careers. So I know that lot of our my age group people and also elder all my seniors definitely have a lot of people have compromised careers. If you go and talk to them, they have a very good PhD from RRI, Indian Institute of Science, many good places. I have seen people having compromised careers just because of the husband's workplace. And I think that is one thing which the new STIP is also talking about. They will have some sort of what you call I think job for a couple. Like if you take an IAS officer, if the two IAS officers are couples, they are supposed to be posted within a distance of 500 kilometers or something. This is the rule is there. So if such a kind of thing comes, then probably it's not even that it should be like 500 kilometers. Just in the beginning stages, I think only that. And later on, you're always independent. Doesn't matter whether you're the other part is staying in abroad and working. All these things are possible. But I think I think this point, the new STIP is talking about the like the career for women, because once if you show that they have a career, definitely people will come from get motivated from the college level and then will grow. And they will have their space and time to think about like taking up that career. So I think in all ways we need to have a conditioned environment, starting from, as madam also mentioned about the circle of care. So we need to have it right from the college. So college is the correct age, correct time to start also, because they are adults, and they can definitely start thinking about what has to happen next. So thank you so much.
Well said, Dr. Kamachi. Yeah. Dr. Bhavani, Dr. Madhurima, Dr. Anupama, and Dr. Kamachi, all of you, your inputs were wonderful. And here, students, those who are listening, you have with you 4 eminent speakers today. Now it's your turn. You can, you have been listening so far. Yeah, come up with questions. You can clear your doubts here. You can put your questions and get the answers from the experts. Yes?
Hi, ma'am. This is Jayashree.
Yeah,
Thanks for
which year, ma?
Second year, ma'am.
Okay.
It's really being pleasure here and listening to all your speeches. And the thing I learned and I'm gonna follow is supporting each other, empowering each other. I never thought this supporting each other could have that much impact. So today onwards, no, this second onwards, I'm gonna support my fellow women members, and also gonna educate the bystander concept to every man I know, and I'm gonna do that when my brother came home, and I'm gonna teach him what is bystander concept and all. Thanks for teaching us this and all. Thanks, ma'am.
Good, Jayashree.
தமிழ்லயும் கேட்கலாம். 3 of the panelists know Tamil. தமிழ்ல பேசலாம்.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Harini from second year. I'd like to ask a question to Madhurima.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, in India, many women scientists has been contributed to the field of science, but only few became a limelight. Leelavati's daughter's book, there are more than 90 women scientists. But after reading that book, before reading that book, I only know only scientists. So what do you think about it, ma'am? Still many women who like to pursue something in their life has a fear of overcoming their hurdles. So what do you think, what do you want to tell the students like us who like to pursue something in future?
Sure, that's a very serious question, and anybody who's working in the area of women in sciences and STEM knows that this is a huge issue. It's a very layered question, and so there are multiple layers to the answer. The first is, of course, that physics and STEM are, STEM in general and physics in particular is a very, very patriarchal or male-dominated field. So you will hear examples only of men quoting men. So unless you have men who are willing to quote women, you're not going to hear the examples of women. Look at the editors of Leelavati's daughters. Professor Ram is possibly the only one who has put his neck out until now and stood for what women in physics stand for. Very few others. Nowadays, yes, you have others coming in, but 15, 20 years ago. So that's number one. You need people to speak, which means, women like us, as much as we might not ideologically believe in just projecting women, we have to speak more about women just to overcome this bias. I might think in my mind that, many men are better than the person I'm quoting, but sometimes you have to put the focus, throw the spotlight because somebody is being ignored. So that's number one. Number two, how many women are really career and goal oriented. If you want to be famous, you need to know right at the beginning that that's the goal. And that was what I was trying to tell you right from the beginning, that you need to be very clear about your goal. And I completely agree with what Dr. Kamakshi was saying, that you will have to do mid-course corrections 1,000,000 times in your life, not once, not twice. But every time, so long as you know that your goal is something, you come back. Sorry, there is an echo from somebody's. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Because I'm hearing an echo. Okay. So what happens is you need to know where your goal is, and you have to really start working for the goal, and you have to start early. You can't wait till you're 40 to decide that you want to be famous, because half the schemes are over by then. And which means you need to be professional, and you need a certain amount of aggression that comes in projecting yourself in the job. Unfortunately, what many women end up doing is to be personally aggressive, shouting or yelling, but without knowing how to live in this man's world. Make friends with the men, they'll teach you how to live in a man's world. I have been called aside and told by my male colleagues saying, hey, this is just a small thing, don't. And something very small, they'll say, no, this is something very serious, because this is from a different perspective that you're looking at. Which also, again, is the last thing I would like to say, is professionalism on your part. Because we have women and girls misusing and abusing the fact that they're women. You don't want to work, ayo, today I'm not feeling well. Nobody can ask you why you're not feeling well. I suffer this with my own students. The moment they declare a stomachache, I have no right to ask them what the stomachache is about, but unfortunately, it will be 20 days out of 30 days in a month. Where is professionalism there? Or, as we grow older, women who say that, oh, I'm burdened with the child, I'm burdened with my family. Fine, all of us have lives. Whether you're single, you are married, you have children, everybody has a personal life. Where is the profession? You don't hear men speaking about this so much. So that sense of professionalism is also something that we need to build if we want to be famous. You need to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with everybody else, with fellow women, with fellow men, and actually stand there and say that, for which you need to have a very clear vision. Like, you have to know what you want, you should know how to achieve it, and work hard for it with a very, very professional attitude. This is what I would say.
Harini, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madhurima ma'am.
Thank you, Harini. That was a good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other student?
Good morning.
Ma'am, actually, I got a question, ma'am. A few years back, I read a newspaper, ma'am.
Introduce yourself, Pa.
Okay, ma'am. It's Mugilan from third year, current BSc Physics, studying DG Vaishnav College, ma'am. And I would like to ask a question. A few years back, I went to a news, ma'am. It says it's full of defense, ma'am, and it's something about women in defense, ma'am. Saying about she's appealing for court, so that she's appealing for court, saying that many of the men in that battalion is not responding to her words. She's an officer in that officer to the battalion, and many of the women in that battalion, many of the men in that battalion are not responding to their words, to her words, because of gender, ma'am. What your views on this, ma'am?
Can I respond with an anecdote, please, because this is something that I really faced, and I would like to share the experience.
Actually, I follow that petitions, ma'am, and I realized something that there is something that's faulty in that system, which means we have to work on primary education to teach them. I heard my echo.
Yeah, I'll just share a small anecdote if you don't mind. May I, Dr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
See, we have this convocation for our university every year, and I'm in charge of what is called the protocol. So basically, it's taking care of the chief guests who come. And a couple of years ago, we had a very senior the person who had come, who needed a protocol of the highest order, which we were not aware in the country, which meant there were pilot vehicles and, gunmen and, some 15 gunmen and guard of honor and everything else. Being the chairperson of the committee, I was the one who was handling this entire thing, and I got to know about it while I was traveling to Trichy to receive the guest. I didn't even know that I had to follow the it was not just the state, there was a state protocol, there was a central protocol, and then there was everything which, and me being me, didn't know anything about any of the protocols. There was this, the state has to send their protocol person who was a Tahsildar from one of the places. And he did exactly what you were describing, which is he refused to take anything that I said because I was a woman. And there was a serious problem I was facing for about 3-4 hours until we received the guest. And there was this colleague of mine who had come with me. And imagine that I am in charge of the entire system, including the, the judiciary, the police, the gunmen and everything. I have to give them instructions. And here is a person who refuses to listen to me. One moment set the tone for the entire thing. And that was when we received the chief guest. We came out, we came to the vehicle. And this Tahsildar said, Madam, you go to the vehicle in the back. I will be following the chief guest, sir. And my colleague took 3 steps back and said, Madam, you first. And the chief guest, the male, he opened the door and said, Madam, get in. That gesture on their part for that 1 second really set the tone, but this also required that I knew how to handle everything from there. After that, I can't be calling everybody and saying, are you enough under there? I don't know what to do. I have to be well prepared, and we need the support. Yes, there is something wrong with the system. It's not just there, it is there in academics. I mean, we see it on an everyday basis, and this really told me how important it is for all of us to be there. When I spoke about the bystander, I've had enough experiences where the men have, and this is actually about the protocol that you were talking about, where they refuse to take orders from you. And how do you know? But you should know what you're doing. Like, you have to be professional enough to know exactly what you're doing, and you need the support. Sorry, but I just thought I should share this experience.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, just one more point, if I could come in. Also, in terms of people need to be aware that we have these protections available, like the protection of sexual harassment at the workplace, and who you can approach when you face such harassments, and every institution to have a committee in place. That's all. So there are these measures that are available for us to be aware of it, and not just let ourselves be cowed down and accept things meekly. I think that's very, very important.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Yeah, I think in the chat box there was a question by one Harini. So can I get to know how one can navigate in one's career with the challenges of these unconditional biases? So as we all mentioned, this is the only thing, your that vigor and that courage, that courage. I mean, we are being told from childhood about Bharatiyar, how Bharatiyar has seen about, I mean, imagine those days, he wrote all these things in 1920s, okay? And it is 2020, 100 years later, we are still talking about it, okay? So the same thing, the Nimirna Nannadai Nerkonda Parvai, that is the one thing, and most importantly, you need your courage, which is what I hope you understand Tamil. I'm not sure, but I mean, given a chance here, I would like to talk in Tamil only because of the safe place here. So please please be always motivated. In my I always have him in my, I mean Bharatiyar is one of our motivators. So obviously when he is always there in my what you call, in my background or something. So everywhere, please have your courage, face things, and as ma'am told, everywhere you have to face, and then have to come up. Each and every women who have succeeded have definitely faced a lot of criticism, lot of problems, starting from not only in India, in abroad as well. So all starting from Marie Curie, whom we always take example for women in science. So I mean, she's well known, and to the recent Nobel laureate Emmanuel Charpentier. Everybody, you please read one day about Emmanuel Charpentier's history. Then you will know how many positions she has shifted, how many places she has worked. Okay, so because of this recent things, and she's not much vocal, but previous lectures, if you listen to her, Emmanuel Charpentier, I got really very motivated after hearing her. So everywhere you need to have your like courage and like that willpower that you can definitely do, and it's really achievable. It's not that it's not possible. So definitely you can all do. There are a lot of, I mean, all these meetings and all these things only facilitate you to move forward. I mean, we have seen, and in the future there will be there should be little less problems. That is the only thing. It's not like the old Mamiar story where I faced and you have to also face. If it goes like that, it's not going to work. Okay, so it's like definitely I mean, that is one of the attitudes many women also have in the work environment, that okay, I went through this, so it's okay, you can also go through. It doesn't matter. So that is what is called that Mamiar history. So like it is not that way. We are all like kind of like vocal. We are all vocal, and a lot of people like Madhurima ma'am and a lot of people have definitely worked worked hard to bring some kind of a neutral, like a equality in this place. So definitely there are biases, but it's definitely also possible to move forward and achieve. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Kindly notice that a feedback link is provided in the chat box. All participants are requested to fill the feedback form. Now I request Harini of 2nd BSc Physics to propose vote of thanks.
It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks for this session. I, Harini, express my heartfelt thanks to the speakers, Madam Dr. R.B. Bhavani, Consultant, FAO, Bangladesh, Madam Dr. B. Madhurima, Professor, Department of Physics, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Tiruvarur, Madam Dr. Anupma Harshal, Consultant, Science Communication and Public Engagement, IISER, Pune, Madam Dr. Kamachi Sankaranarayan, Assistant Professor, Institute of Advanced Study in Science and Technology, Guwahati, Assam. On behalf of my fellow student participants and professors, Department of Physics, for their motivational discussion on women in STEM. Thank you, panelists, for throwing lights into the field of empowering diversity in science. Thank you for letting us know that taking break doesn't let us down. Instead, we can also get motivated through it and come back strong in our career. Thank you for giving ideas and bystanding training, circle of care, and cooperative learning. This session gives us a great enthusiasm and determination to explore more in our career. I extend my sincere thanks to our secretary and principal for encouraging and supporting us to conduct webinars. My deep sense of gratitude to the professors from other institutions who have joined with us. My big thanks to our professors, Department of Physics, for organizing such webinars. Last but not the least, I express my sincere thanks to our technical team and fellow participants for their constant support and enthusiastic participation. Thank you all.